So, listen up, here's the deal. The Xiaomi Mi 9 SE at the moment is priced at roughly 300 to 350 euros. Comparing that now though to the roughly 400 to 450 euros of the Xiaomi Mi 9, so quite obviously a price difference of around 100 euros. I would almost like to say that this is too close considering of how much generally a better phone the Mi 9 is. And yet, I'd also have to say that this price difference is actually legit, since the Mi 9 SE has something going for it, where the Mi 9 simply cannot compete, and that is size. I mean, in times where phones are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, a just 6-inch phone definitely still can actually be called compact, and finding a good compact phone is getting harder and harder. So let's see of how good this one is, but let's see of how actually small this one is compared to, for example, the Mi 9. And I mean, it's super obvious of how much smaller it is and how much easier this will be in one-hand use. Now, here it is next to the Mi 6, well, actually very similar. And since the Xiaomi Mi 6 never really got a compact flagship successor, I guess the next best thing here is the Mi 9 SE. Other competitors would be maybe something like the S10e, or for example here the P30, which after all is a little bit bigger, but that, just like the S10e, are both noticeably more expensive. But let's actually get to the design and build here. And when it comes to the design, I have to say that this looks and feels way more like an iPhone X than an Xiaomi Mi 9, because as you can see, it doesn't have the curved back, which makes the phone generally feel noticeably thinner. But this one feels very nice in hand after all, because it's smaller, therefore still one-hand use is good. Ergonomics are great because you can easily reach all buttons. It feels very well built, nothing creaks, the tactile feedback is great. The fingerprint reader maybe isn't great, but it's, I would say, still good enough because it's about on a Mi 9 level. I would say maybe a little bit less reliable and a little bit slower. It's, I would say, a decent, I would say maybe good in-display fingerprint reader. Otherwise, if we take a look at the back, we can see the camera protruding, obviously a glass back. We don't really have to discuss that anymore these days. Then we have the IR blaster, the microphone, dual SIM slot, speaker on the right, on the left the mic, and USB-C. What we also get on the front is the notch that I actually like quite a lot because it's quite subtle. Unfortunately, can't be hidden in the software anymore. Maybe at one point it will happen again. But what we don't have for sure is a notification LED. What we also have is, which in my opinion is still fine, are the bezels. They are bigger than on the Mi 9 and they are not the smallest ones, but I think that's totally fine, especially since this is still one of the more compact, also one with a flat back, which for example we don't have on the S10 series or on the P30 series, but those are anyways way bigger. So let's get into the next thing, which would be the display. I'm gonna keep this actually short. This is a very nice display, good brightness, good viewing angles, very stable. It's an OLED display, so great blacks, good calibration, nice deep colors. So I'm super pleased. It's definitely not the sharpest one out there, not the best one out there, but for a compact phone, it's good. It's obviously not an S10e level. Now, speaker, let's get to that one quickly. Yes, I am pleased. It is loud enough and it sounds quite good, warm and rich. Maybe not the loudest one, maybe not the best sounding one, but definitely totally solid, which is way more than that. Like also the headphone jack that is not included in the phone because you need a dongle for that. But as I said on the Mi 9, it's one of the loudest ones out there, very flexible with presets in the settings, equalizer and so on. And it also sounds absolutely nice. Absolutely nice is also the performance, because this is running on 712, and I know in my preview I said it's actually very close to a flagship, and exactly at that point when I said it there was some stutters going on, but I can generally tell you that this is an above average mid-range level, because usually those don't feel quite as smooth, quite as consistent, quite as fast, because one thing it definitely is responsive, and it is smooth, and it is pretty consistent, I would say. Also the multitasking, I mean, these days it's fine. And usually when we compare this with, for example, 625, 630, 636 phones and so on, this is definitely better, because 712 is even a little bit above an 660, or also the 712, which 710, which is pretty much the same. So generally I'm super pleased here. Absolutely all good. It doesn't get warm, anything, totally happy. with it. About the battery charge, I didn't actually measure. I forgot that just as much as the YouTube 1 hour drain. So let's just forget that. But I can tell you the battery life, which is after all more important. Standby drain was actually pretty consistent, not quite as flaky as on the Mi 9. I usually never had trouble with the Chinese ROM, which I'm using here by the way. So all is good. And battery life I would say is like, let's say on average half an hour less than maybe the Mi 9. But the Mi 9 was also a little bit more flaky, so when the Mi 9 is really good on its way, then this one is like half an hour less, but if it's worse, then this one is maybe even better. So let's just say roughly 4.5, maybe 5 hours on data. Let's maybe add 2 hours more on Wi-Fi, and that's what we can expect. Software, once again, I'm gonna completely ditch because I don't want to talk about MIUI anymore. I did it so many times. The software is what it is, get used to it or don't. It gets good sometimes with a new update, it gets sometimes worse, and especially the global ROM usually seems to be a little bit less prone to having annoying annoyances or something like that. There is also the Xiaomi EU ROM, which could fix even more so bugs. So if you know what MIUI does and if you like it, you will be fine. If you don't like it, this won't change it. For me at the moment, it's at a point where I don't like it so much, but usually you get updates quite quick, quite for a long time. Getting back to the call reception, that one was fine. Call quality was good. Network connection was also fine. Wi-Fi was good. Not the best one, but good. So let's get into the camera here. I'm not gonna go into the software because I've talked enough about that. So let's start with the selfies. And what I have to say here is, as you can see, generally pretty nice and sharp, detailed. But especially compared to the Mi 9, I noticed that it lacks a little bit the dynamic range, it lacks a little bit on the natural colors, and it's just not quite as good. It is still a very good front-facing cam, but it slightly tends to overexpose, doesn't just get the color science as right. But for a mid-range phone, this is definitely above average compared to those at this price range. So I'm pleased with that, absolutely. Video maybe not quite so much. That one felt very, very shaky and was even more so overexposed, but you can see that later on in the sample for yourself. But well, low light, it gets obviously a little bit softer. There is also the software flash. So I think you got the samples, you know what to expect. I am pleased with it for the price. Yeah, doesn't get much better. Low light gets better because even though if you use the night mode, like I said already on the Mi 9, I'm not that happy about the night mode because it doesn't really improve details or anything. It's like over processing. It's usable, and obviously this is supporting for sure. I'm absolutely confident in that. The Gcam, that I didn't have the time to test though. So if you want to assume the same as on the Xiaomi Mi 9, generally you can almost add like half a star to anything to the rest. But as you can see here, low light, I mean, it's definitely weaker than on the Mi 9 when I compared them side by side, but it gets the job done. Where it is though pretty much on par, which I did not expect at all, at least in those situations when I tried it side by side, is in normal lighting conditions, because it's nice and sharp, it's very reliable, it's very fast, it's consistent, colors are very natural, and you pretty much don't lose out on any features because you also have, for example, the wide angle mode and nice colors. I mean, AI mode, I'm just gonna say the same as always, it just adds colors, it's just oversaturation, over contrast. But here once again, wide angle, normal angle, with the AI mode, now with HDR. I am very pleased because especially the details that it maintains, the sharpness and of how consistent we got good shots. I did not expect that because I know I said that this will be noticeably weaker than on the Mi 9 and it actually isn't. And with the Gcam, it actually should be even better. So if it's for photos, for the main cam, this is the thing where you lose out the least bit. Where you lose out a little bit more is the main video cam, which just isn't as sharp, isn't quite as nicely stabilized. I mean, forget my sample where you can see that because I had a little bit of an odd tripod going on where I shaked a little bit more. So quality is just not quite as detailed and the video is just not quite as good. But if it just comes down to the photos, especially the main shooter, this is actually pretty much just as good. But let's actually already wrap this up and make this quick. What I like is definitely the design, the build quality, the display, the speaker is still good enough, the performance, I mean, it's not an 855, but this is not that far off, especially in normal use, you won't have an issue with that. Battery life is solid, even though maybe not the best one anymore. Software is what it is. The camera is pretty solid general, and this is a good phone. It offers good value. But if it just comes down to value, I think for about 100 more you get something noticeably generally better as a whole package with the Mi 9. But not at that size. So let's quickly compare this actually with the competition from Samsung. Well, it doesn't feel quite as thin, quite as compact, but just as good as the S10. The display is not on that level, the speaker is not on that level, the performance is not on that level, the battery life is actually a little bit better, software is not on that level, and the camera is not on that level. Which obviously sounds like it's a lose-lose if you get the Mi 9. But consider the price, which is just the half, and it's not like when it loses by that much. I mean, yeah, display and speaker are just phenomenal on the S10, but then battery life and software, if it doesn't matter, and camera qualities for half the price. This is still comparing actually good to the P30, which I only have for about 2 days right now, so I can't say that much. I would say this. This almost can't be beaten in terms of in-hand feel. It feels great, but it's bigger. After all, a little bit bigger, so maybe not directly comparable. Quite similar display, maybe. Actually, I like the calibration more here. The speaker is quite similar. The performance is better here. The battery life is way better here. The software, EMUI versus MIUI, I don't know which one I like less. And then the camera, which is a little bit better after all, but actually not that crazy much as you would have expected, but then also more than twice the price. So I think actually, if you want a compact phone, you can save a lot of money and get something really, really nice with that one here. Maybe you could consider Pixel 3. I never really reviewed that, which might have some other good traits. But the big thing about this phone is actually, is that it has no major flaws. It's not outstanding in anything, but it in no category falls really short. So, and to mention one thing, if you'll see the demos now, the mic quality is actually significantly better than on the Mi 9. So I don't know, I've heard they screwed up the software on the Mi 9, but they definitely didn't do that on the Mi 9 SE, so kudos. Why not just get this right on the Mi 9 in the first place? But that would have been the review. I hope you liked it. Yay, I got it done. Watch the samples. Okay, so this would be the front-facing video cam of the Mi 9 SE. Video actually looks pretty decent. Let's see if it drops any frames here. Graininess looks, at least on the viewfinder, actually quite good. The sound, well, Xiaomi, I don't think we have to discuss that. Quality won't be great. Crop doesn't seem to be that bad. Quality overall. So you could use these for vlogging if you just want a mid-range phone. It actually looks pretty decent. Definitely have to check it on my monitor. But so far, nice.